Hi. I'm hoping that this video isn't going to be too long, but I'm trying to explain something here which I think by the end of the video it will be clear. There's a few things, dots, connecting dots, and everybody knows how to do dots, okay? So, as I say, I'm going to show you a few different clips of things. I will bring them together by the end of it, and you know, hopefully people will understand the message that I'm trying to share here. Now, to start with, this was sent to me, a video posted onto Facebook by Sinead O'Connor. First of all, let me just say, you know, what an absolutely courageous and brave lady she is. She's a publicly known figure. She's famous. She sang that, she shot to fame really from that very beautiful, poignant and moving song that she sang, Nothing Compares to You, which at the time when I heard that song, I mean, whether or not she was singing about him or not, but she just expressed exactly how I felt about Jesus, you know. And to me, that song has always been about Jesus, and it's a feeling that I grew up with, and I so loved that song that she sang. It was just perfect, and it just so perfectly touched on that, I suppose, grief that I felt even as a child, that you know, Jesus isn't here. You know, he was in my being, in my understanding, in my faith, in my belief, even as a child, but he wasn't there physically in my home, you know. It was the opposite of Jesus, that we had for a father in a supposedly lawful, civilised country. Sorry about that slight interruption. So, what Sinead's explaining here, she's sharing her inner emotions. She's opened up her heart very bravely, opened her heart, and as she says, she's speaking on behalf of millions, if not billions of people really, as to how she's feeling and how she's been suffering from mental illness, and she's been stigmatised by that, and people have just left her on her own basically to get on with it. And she's asked, you know, she's experiencing intense loneliness. She's feeling suicidal. So daily she's battling for the will to live. And really, as she says, the only reason why she's here is for the love that she has for her children and friends and some of the family. And myself, and I know Sue Rowlands, Cheryl Ann Murphy, who are both also friends of mine, we have been there. I've been there regularly. To do with my family being isolated and left alone and judged mad and a liar, to deal with people who judge me, you know, because I suffer from CPTSD, I survived child abuse. Those things are all minuses against me, and anything that I have to say is thoroughly negated, you know. And then on top of that, there's the fact that I'm a female, which again is an automatically, you know, is an automatic minus in this world. And women know it, especially women of compassion, okay? And Sinead is a very caring and compassionate person. Now, is Sinead really suffering from mental illness, or is she not suffering from neglect and grief over the fact that her compassion and the intelligence, the true intelligence that arises from her compassion, has been thoroughly negated, oppressed and ignored? You know, I firmly believe that that is what is causing a lot of mental illness, so-called mental illness. But really, these so-called mental illnesses are often just a reflection of a heartless society. A society that has cast compassion out. The builders have refused compassion, the cornerstone, what should be the cornerstone of our world, of our humanity, of our law, has been cast out. And it's been in its place has been put ignorance. That's the cornerstone. Ignorance allows for compassion to be replaced with competition. In competitions, there's no room for compassion. The people who have compassion will fall over the stumbling block, because compassion cannot be cast out. It is still there. It's a reality of our humanity. So the fact that the world refuses to acknowledge it does not mean that humanity does not live with compassion. It does not mean that that compassion itself is going to harm us in this world. The more we move forward in this world, the higher we climb, whether we might get in this world. Our compassion is going to be a stumbling block. And that is why so many people who do become wealthy through, fair and legitimate means, through their honest talent that even this world can't deny, they do end up being crushed. And, my heart goes out to Sinead. I send her love and strength, and as far as I'm concerned, she is one strong lady. You are one strong lady, Sinead O'Connor, and know that, and stay alive. Because this is a battle for survival, and it is a spiritual battle in the sense of our thoughts. That's what spirit is. Okay, spirits are thoughts, and our heads are full of thoughts. And people like Sinead, and the millions of people that she's speaking for who have been diagnosed with mental illness, who survive, who are struggling to survive, who aren't being given the support that they need, who are being judged like a criminal, really, like it's a crime to suffer from mental illness. So, it's double the blow. It's mental illness because of injuries to our consciousness, to our conscience, our living, compassionate conscience. Okay, injuries sustained there have caused so-called mental illness. The people who survive it, who experience it, who are struggling with it, they're all being condemned, and but the people who are slapping labels on them and studying them and writing about them in their psychiatric journals, they're all getting social credits and awards, their outstanding contribution to, i.e. child psychology or whatever. But where's the acclaim and the credit and the awards to the real people that these academics are vamping off? And they're studying these people, but they are not. They are swallowing the camel while balking at the gnat. Okay. They're swallowing the camel because they're refusing to, to collectively point out the fact that it is our imbalanced, unfair, mythical world reality that has cast out our cornerstone compassion and replaced it with ignorance is responsible primarily for all this mental illness, and even the mental illness that my father suffered, that then was inflicted on us. So And as I say, as a woman, and women do embody most of the compassion in this world. That's the fact of it. The compassion and kindness in this world. That's the burden for women, isn't it? Because women are meant to be compassionate and kind and forgiving and loving and caring, aren't we? That's our job. The emotions, the feelings, that's our job, isn't it? Because let's face it, men are inherently informed by this world, and the history of it that they're taught at school is that real men, the strongest, most powerful men, have no compassion. Compassion is a weakness if it's in a male. That's what this world inherently tells men. And it does have an impact. It has the impact to the extent that 2 to 3 women per week are being killed by a partner or ex-partner in Britain. Countless women throughout the world are suffering battery and assault and murder by men who hate women. I'm not saying there aren't man-haters out there from women as well, which obviously, you know, it is going to happen when you're growing up in a society that has fundamentally for thousands of years, well, for hundreds of years, divided the male and female. That all began with Rome actually. And, you know, denigrated one half of our humanity. Said women were dirty and unclean because they bleed every month. Is it any wonder in such a world that we reach today where women, after having a baby, are getting so depressed that they're killing themselves? Or, you know, they're regularly suffering from severe postnatal depression to the extent that then social services come and remove their baby from them permanently. Again, double the blow. You know, I don't think that it is natural. It can only be natural in an oligarchical society that has killed the patriarchy and denigrated the matriarchy. And that's how it destroyed the patriarchy in the first place, was by denigrating the matriarch. Because there can be no patriarch without a matriarch. So you denigrate the matriarch, that means the patriarch has lost half his power. And then he's toppled, and that's why humanity today, we are at our youth stage of consciousness. That is why Jesus taught us to pray to our Father who art in heaven. And if we want our Father to live on earth, then we will have to start getting with a humane society that has compassion as its prime cornerstone in its foundation of law. And that's what Jesus preached, a universal law of abundance and compassion that upholds everybody's human rights, animal rights, earth rights, plant rights. You know, universal intelligence is beneficent, and it provides the foundation for a society that can flourish in unconditional love, to the extent that the law serves everybody equally from the first to the last, and nobody is above the law. Nobody is too big to prosecute. And so, you know, Sinead very bravely has shared her compassion that some people would think, you know, I know that there are people out there who would say, oh, look how low Sinead O'Connor's got, you know, to making videos for Facebook appealing for help. I look at Sinead O'Connor, like I say, no, she's not sunk low. Look how low this world has sunk. That a beautiful person like Sinead O'Connor is reduced to tears, in isolation, even by her own family. A family that can judge her and voice whatever they've got to say against her, but they will say nothing at all about the horrors of this world. Because there sits Palestine. There sits the children of Africa. There sits the 4.5 billion people struggling to live on 75p a day. And we need to get real. And I do hold for what's going on in this world right now. You know, the professional people, the so-called higher educated, you are all responsible, all you journalists, you're all responsible for everything that is happening in this world, because you have all toed the the consensus from the top, haven't you? And, you know, this idea that compassion is a feminine thing, when it's actually a human thing. And you cannot cut compassion out of the man and convince him that it's a weakness, and that it's a weakness in himself. So of course he's going to hate the woman, isn't he? Inherently, because at the end of the day, he's in love with a weakness. And that fundamental psychological building block is having a real impact in broken bones and dead bodies. And it has contributed to a psychosexual disease. It's an epidemic of child abuse now. Now, I know this seems slightly off subject, like I say, I'm connecting dots here. But, you know, this is a programme done by Abby Martin. She's interviewing Noam Chomsky, electing the president of an empire. And somebody here, Cerinthus 22, has complained, you know, why do the hell do men in comments always feel the need to gush over Abby's beauty but only compliment her male guests on their intelligence? It's really depressing to see that a woman's genius is completely unworthy of mention if she's pretty. Every single video. This is a political conversation between two intellectuals, but you reduce her intellectual endeavour to a visual spectacle for your pleasure by treating her as such. You dicks have no part in this conversation. Leave them out of it. And then she gets, you know, oh look, no, she's an attractive female. We want to talk about her tits. Oh, Chomsky's a genius, Abby is beautiful. So that's one aspect, you know, that the world deals with. Now, moving on from that comment, this person, Thus Spake Mike, makes a very good point here. I think Sanders gets a bum deal here. I love Chomsky and understand the implementation of Sanders' policies is going to be difficult, but I think Chomsky should get behind this. What does he want? Frigging Captain America to lead a revolution of the people down Pennsylvania Avenue? They did a segment on medical industry, banks, capitalism, economic inequality, corporatocracy, and then conclude in a whim, the candidates offer nothing new. Sorry, Noam, but that's bollocks. I'm English, FFS. But pedantry aside, Sanders is as different as they come from a modern USP candidate. And Luke McPhee says, Thus spake Mike, I'm not sure he's necessarily saying that Bernie Sanders is doing anything wrong. He was even complimentary toward many of his policies. But the point Chomsky was trying to make was that elections incite short-lived activism in American politics, and that if the system is to be changed, this activism needs to be contingent on an election. In other words, his criticism was directed more at the American public than at Bernie Sanders' campaign, as far as I understand it. And then Thus Spake Mike replies, Yeah, I heard the same. However, they also say the candidates offer nothing different. No, Chomsky has a chance to contribute massively to something he's campaigned for all his life, but he's taking the academic sideline route. Bernie Sanders was never a factor in this fight. It always had to be a revolution or anarchy, i.e. we were never going to get change from the top because politics is owned by corporations, something Sanders is vehemently against. Let's help him. Don't know what I can do over here like England. I may contribute to his campaign. Now that is a very important point because, you know, I know I've upset some people because of my educating Chomsky on linguistics video, but I have got a problem, like Spake Mike, that people like Chomsky, they intellectualise and articulate the very real suffering of people. They get accredited for it. He's somebody wonderful. You know, people are waiting to hear what he says. He gets paid thousands of pounds for giving speeches here and there, for writing books. Okay. But what he's intellectualising, what he's talking about, is basically the real lives that millions of people are experiencing. Okay? They're living it for real. And that is the problem. You know, the academic sideline route. Because all of the intelligence that Noam Chomsky shares, a lot of what he's saying, it's intellectualised, it's using academic words that just float over the heads of a lot of people, and most people who perhaps could connect with their real life, with what he's saying, don't get a chance to see him because they're working so hard. You know, they've only got the bare basics of time to listen to the bare basics of news that they get from their bare basic mainstream media. If they do step outside the box, well, they've got David Icke there talking about lizards and Alex Jones inviting them all to become, you know, become part of the alternative right, so-called. And a lot falls in between. And that is the problem, you see, because the people on the ground, they don't need to listen to Trump. They don't need to listen to Noam Chomsky to know the reality of what they're living. Okay? Children grow up knowing what Chomsky regurgitates as, you know, some intellectual light for the equally mystified people who are themselves are of a higher class, most of them, who have come from privileged middle and upper class backgrounds. And the thing is that they're all going, oh yeah, he's right, oh, he's put it so succinct, you know, so succinctly there, and he is so right what he's saying, but he doesn't come out in full support. He does not give his backing to anything. He takes the academic sideline route, and that's what they're all doing. Academia has become like a little shelter, hasn't it? A little industry. And yeah, so what hope have the people got if the intelligence that's claiming itself to be the intelligence of a nation, if they aren't speaking out about things like 9/11, okay, questioning an official story, an official conspiracy theory that fundamentally pivots on a denial of the basic laws of physics, well, Jesus said, if you want to get into the kingdom of heaven, then you must be like a little child. Be like a little child. So what did he mean? Did he mean we're all supposed to go around sucking dummies and wearing nappies? What did he mean? Be like a little child. Dare to ask a question. dare to ask a question. And they have not collectively asked any questions. Now this brings me on to Truth Dig. And this was sent to me today. And it's an article by John Pilger in which he's talking about, you know, well, he's more or less predicting a nuclear war with Russia, and he quotes T.S. Eliot's Hollow Men. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. And so, you know, I've commented because I can't even describe, I can't even go into it, how upset I was by Pilger. But I put this from a guy who voiced support for Trump. I lost all faith in Pilger when he failed to acknowledge that a Clinton-Trump choice was the kind of choice a nation gets when they fail to do their duty by their written constitution and arrest the tyrants who did and/or covered up the truth of 9/11. It was a huge shock and disappointment. If Pilger's predictions are for real, then he and every journalist and educated person in the Western Hemisphere who has declined to ask a question is responsible. Not one can claim they do not understand the basic laws of physics. Silence equals consent. What are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish? Son of man, you cannot say or guess, for you know only a heap of broken images where the sun beats, and the dead tree gives no shelter, the cricket no relief, and the dry stone no sound of water. And that's from Wasteland's T.S. Eliot. Okay, and this person, Kaylin, has written a very wonderful comment. It's spot on. Okay, and I'll just leave that up. You can freeze to read it because it is quite long. So, you know, what is my purpose for showing you these dots? What is the connection? The connection is lack of compassion. Okay. A mystified world that really has no solid truth to cling on to. But the lies are solid, let's face it. The lies have built institutions. They've built powerhouses. It's created a money supply. But what is this truth based on? What is the truth of this world, which is actually a lie, because it's built on myth and misunderstanding and misinterpretation? The lie that women are inferior and should have no rights and basically be a slave. Basically, be a cunt for delivering one generation after the next to earn money for rich people, to make them richer. Meanwhile, the production, the producers, the manufacturers, what do they get? They get to suffer pain, emotional struggles, financial struggles, raising these children who are then plucked up by the corporations as if we're all a vineyard and they're coming to collect our grapes. And it really is time that women stood up, you know. Again, when we look at the amount of women that suffer from premenstrual tension, why are women getting so tense before their periods? Is it because fundamentally they've been inherently indoctrinated for over 1,000 years, and it's still going on today, that they're taught to feel ashamed and dirty, and that their natural femininity is a curse from God? And then, well, once you've got a woman to fundamentally, subconsciously accept that, it's no wonder that she's going to be depressed, even though her conscious mind might not be aware of all those centuries of judgments against her. Her subconscious is. And it's from the subconscious that depression, deep depression, springs from the deep subconscious. That's why people consciously have no control over it. They don't know really where it comes from. because we're not consciously connected to our subconscious. Why do we even have a subconscious? Why? Is it natural that we've got a subconscious? Why have we got a subconscious? Is it because there's certain aspects of our humanity, our human lived experience, our reality as an intellectual species on this planet has been oppressed and denied and pushed away? Like, for example, stuff that's called supernatural and is all relegated to the mystical mystery zone along with Jesus and God. You know, this is the kind of world that we're living in. We're living in a consciousness that wiped out, that systematically executed what previous cultures, previously Druid, the Celtic Christians, the voodoo Christians of Africa, and most other cultures recognised as the shining ones of their communities, who are placed by nature. They're natural leaders because they're not selfish, because they think for everybody. They take everything into account. They're shining ones. They're intelligent. And they're intelligent because they are most compassionate. They're not egotistical. And these were stamped out in our communities systematically throughout Europe by the Roman Church. And what they said to people, you know, we need to think about these things, because these things have built this world that still to this day is influencing all of us and impacting us. You know, they said that men, because it wasn't just women, it was men as well, and we need to remember that. That people, natural healers, anybody who had any supernatural powers, who had experienced anything supernatural, okay, they were judged as witches and demons. They were murdered. And the Catholic Church, well, it wasn't, I wouldn't call it the Catholic Church, and I'm not denigrating Catholics, okay, because the people that, the ordinary people that are part of that, Jesus knows you're there because of him and you love Jesus, okay, so Jesus doesn't hold those people in any way to be responsible for the crimes of the Roman Church from its highest echelons. And that goes the same for the people who are suffering under the oppressions of their governments. But that church issued a list of things that witches could do, why they needed to be executed. Okay, and people believed them. You've got the Pope, who apparently has direct contact with God. Actually, his God was a lump of gold. Because if you're going to steal power off shining ones, then you better have something shiny, hadn't you? And tell people that it's divine and it's very valuable. And actually, it's more valuable than 100 children. It's the only way that you're going to get your hands on people's children, that you're going to disconnect a man from his woman and child, is by telling him that this lump of gold has more power and more valuable and more godly than their rights. Well, that he told the world that witches, and remember I'm talking about both male and female, not just women, witches could control the weather, they could withhold your assets and possessions from a distance, they could rain down fire and pestilence from above on their flying broomsticks, they could destroy our crops, they could sap a man's strength and make people infertile. Those were the things that we were told witches could do. So we all were encouraged in every community to out the witches and make sure that they were exterminated. Okay, because we didn't want all those bad things to happen to us. And that's what happened. Millions of men and women were hunted down, persecuted, murdered, tortured. Okay? And now, what kind of world are we living in? By the people, the same consciousness that has continued throughout history to this very day, still sitting in its Vatican, okay, and its palaces and its parliaments with its weapons. What can they do today? Well, they can withhold all your possessions and assets from a distance. They can rain down fire and pestilence from above on their flying machines. They can destroy our crops. They can sap a man's strength and destroy our fertility. And in fact, they can actually destroy the whole planet. Okay? That's the reality that we're living in. And that reality does want to exterminate people, because apparently there's too many of us. Because according to them, when God created humanity, man, both male and female, to be like us, and set them to tame the earth, okay? When Jah said, go forth and multiply, well, apparently that was a crime. That was a wrong thing to do. We shouldn't have multiplied. So, basically what? Jah is the kind of God that asks people to multiply so he can have a giant bloodbath and just kill everybody off and kill half the planet off in the process. No. We have a wealth of humanity on this earth today. And that wealth of humanity has been pushed into life by degraded and degenerated and persecuted women. Okay? Without often their choice. In most cases. Rape is common. Little girls are giving birth to little girls and little boys. Children are giving birth to children. And then they have the nerve to talk about a population explosion. And yet we know for a fact that in every single society where women have been given a modicum of their rights, and there's things like social health care, housing, welfare, workers' employment rights, population, birth rates have steadily declined to such a degree that countries like Britain were, until they invited mass immigration, were complaining that we're going to have to be dealing with an ageing population. So instead of complaining about that and thinking to themselves, oh yeah, birth rates declined, well that's a good thing. So, you know, the population's stabilising because we're doing right. We're living compassionately. Population stabilising. People are choosing to have fewer children or even no children. So, therefore, what we need to do is really look after this population, and so that they grow into old age quite healthily. So that they're not, you know, falling down with diabetes because we're shoving this high sugar, high calorie diet on them. No, no, no. You see, because they're totally selfish, because they know damn well that if they ever give women their full rights, they would not be able to exploit half the world. They would not be able to be turning Britain and America and every other country on this planet right now into a corporate farm. And I know the battle for the will to live. I know that voice in the head saying, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. Why? Why is my inner self saying, I want to go home? Because I cannot find a home really in this world. No matter where I am, that I am not at home because I'm not living in a heart. So, you know, if we go back to Chomsky, that, yeah, is he expecting Captain America to lead the crowd down Pennsylvania Avenue? And if they get there, what's going to happen to them? Even if they camp out, are they going to have pepper spray sprayed in their eyes, as happened with Occupy? Because, let's face it, Captain America is a fiction, isn't it? Like Superman. Superman's a fiction. But no, Superman isn't a fiction. Superman is a reality. Superman gets up every day and goes and drives a bus, a train, flies a plane, goes and digs, builds. Superman, both male and female, gets into the hospitals, treats the sick, serves in the shops, serves in the armies, in the police. Superman is alive and kicking. But who's listening to him? Who is standing up for his rights? Not really Chomsky, because Chomsky is just intellectualising the oppressions and struggles that Superman is facing and why he's there. But he's not putting his weight behind anything, and none of these intellectuals are. And that's why. That's why I said what I said against Chomsky, because I expressed, you know, it's not that I don't love the man, it's not that I don't appreciate what he's saying, okay? But I do feel let down. And a lot of people, and we have been let down. We have been let down by the educated and the intellectuals, because it is up to them to speak for us, because nobody's listening to us. I'm not Chomsky. Nobody wants, you know, RT News or The Real News isn't going to come and interview me. Truthdig isn't going to be publishing my articles, are they? Because, you know, I'm not John Pilger. And this is what I mean, you know. And like I say, with America, that all my life I've grown up hearing about America and how proud they are of their Constitution, and they're all the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. Really, the Constitution was thrown in the waste paper basket the moment JFK got shot, and the country failed to arrest the people, the tyrants that did it then, the internal tyranny. But 9/11, you know, that's what you are going to get when a country's been taken over by tyrants, when they've shot the elected leader and replaced him with somebody who basically reverses everything that their elected leader was going to do. And from there on in, it's been all the way down a slippery slope to 9/11, to the point of today where Trump is in office. You know, no matter what people think about the man as a successful businessman or not, he's the wrong man. He's a man in the wrong place. He should not be in the place where he is, and he would not be able to be unless America had been taken over by tyrants. And, you know, Jesus said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. But that cannot be the case for these people, these intellectuals and journalists who fail to ask a question. They know. They cannot claim that they don't understand the basic laws of physics. Nobody can claim that. It is. We are in a situation of the emperor has got no clothes, aren't we? Where everybody's admiring his wonderful clothing, or criticising it even, in the case of Chomsky and John Pilger. But in fact there is no clothing. So what's going on? the critiques of the clothing, the admirers of the clothing. There is no clothing. Now, what I'm explaining, and this is why it is fundamental to changing everything, we do have an eternal light being, quantum light being, quantum energy, soul. We do not lose consciousness when we die, when our physical body passes away. That physical body was a host. How closely have we lived by the intelligence of the universal golden light that we are supposed to be following, not this light of this physical gold which does very little, if anything at all, for most of us, except oppress us and keep us all living in austerity, and it's an austerity on joy. And meanwhile, Superman is being driven to suicide. You know, suicides have risen at a massive rate in Britain, in Europe, in America, and male suicides in particular. And it is a terrible thing. But those people, have they really committed suicide, or have they been actually died through manslaughter, through murder actually, by economic terrorism, by austerity on compassion? So a strong man is a man who can live with compassion, okay? And that is a man's right to have his compassion, not to feel weakened by it, but to feel strengthened in his humanity. And that is exactly why they've removed it and put man at odds with himself and his other half, the female. And her responses and reactions to that, well, obviously she's going to be angry, she's going to be upset, she's going to be in distress, she's going to carry an innate, often unarticulated resentment against the male. And she will strive all her life to bury that and just love, to smother it with love. And often will suffer the results of it, will suffer battery and, you know, all kinds of oppressions. And so, like I say, once people understand the scientifically proven fact now that we do have a quantum energy light being soul that probably will be reincarnated again and again onto life in this planet as a human, okay, or may enter into the quantum paradise, which is another dimension of quantum energy, because the universe is infinite for quantum energy. Our minds are a universe. Then we start to realise that what we're living in now is a culture of death. It's a death culture. And we've got our leaders, our so-called global elites, who are planning a nuclear war because they're following Revelations to the letter, which I have explained, and I'll leave you the video again. Cerinthus wrote Revelations. He falsely accredited them to St. John the Apostle. St. John the Apostle did not write them, that's a fact, we know that for sure now. Okay? St. John the Apostle loathed Cerinthus and called him the deceiver of all mankind. Okay? There is truth in Revelations, and the truth of Revelations is the truth that was in the original prophecies from the original prophets in the original Testament, because I don't call it the Old Testament, I call it the original Testament. It's a record of our spiritual thoughtful human history and experiences. And some of those experiences were and are supernatural, and I've experienced it for myself. So, you know, I'm talking from a position of fact and knowledge. Why some people are more open to such experiences, I think I've touched on in my Supernatural or Not Yet video. Again, I'll leave you the link. I'll leave you the link to Cerinthus, Revelations. Check it for yourself. Okay, what we're dealing with is a prophecy from a misogynist person who hated Jesus and tried to replace him with Lucifer. Read it very clearly for yourself in Revelations, where Jesus calls himself the bright and morning star. Go back to the original Testament, look at the original prophecies, the original prophets. Who is the bright and morning star? Lucifer. What light is he bearing? His own fantastical, imagined conclusions about himself as a man and the rights that he has, and that actually his might makes him right. So he picks up on gold as a weighty object. Gravity. But according to the quantum energy that created us, that we are host to, we're not bound by the laws of physics. According to our law is universal law of abundance and compassion. It's bound by the higher intellect of golden light. And this is why I've been asking, you know, and I've asked for, well, I've written to some key figures who I trust in the truth movement to get together with each other. Michael Tellinger, Abby Martin, Chris Hedges, absolutely top respect for Chris Hedges. Perhaps even Noam Chomsky, you know, because there's Cynthia McKinney, Jesse Ventura, okay. We need to get together and discuss and present a united front for Superman, to liberate Superman. Because there's nothing there. What has he got to turn to? What has she got to turn to? Instead, they're all, you know, standing on their little islands. We've got Michael Tellinger talking about Ubuntu. We've got, you know, these people. This is the Bank of Joy, okay? I think it was initially founded by Ronald Bernard, who's, I'll leave you the link to his video. He recently came out and has exposed the financial system for what it is, actually governed by Satanists. That was the point where he said his conscience was taken out of the deep freeze when he was asked to participate in ritual child sacrifice, and as a result he left that financial world and he set up the Bank of Joy. Now he has had an out-of-body experience, okay? His body died. He knows that he's made of quantum energy. We all need to know that, because that's a reality. So what does it mean then? Then when we look at somebody like Jesus, who was telling us exactly the same, but also explaining to us that, look, how you live in this life is going to have an impact on your soul. And at some point, there will be a judgment, because the truth shall be known. The consciousness shall know the truth. And for centuries and centuries, people have followed their soul vibrations. The rich have been born rich, the poor have been born poor, and the rich people say, no, all them poor people and sick people, it's because God's cursed them. That's why they're born poor. I'm blessed by God because, look, I've got loads of gold. Everything that happens on earth is God's will. Look, we're following Revelations, we're destroying the whole planet, we're performing God's will. But seriously, are we living by God's will? No, we're not. We're living by the gold man God's will. God's will isn't getting a look in, okay? Because God's will is universal law of abundance in compassion. The cornerstone, compassion. The foundation for unconditional love. The foundation for an abundance of joy. It doesn't mean that bad things won't happen. It doesn't mean we won't suffer in life. But all those things, the bad things, are not by will of God as a punishment. We need to be like the people of Nineveh. Jonah went to Nineveh. He prophesied to them. He told them all these bad things were going to happen to them because God had insisted that he do that. The people all immediately ask for forgiveness and all change and become a lawful, happy society. And Jonah's very unhappy. And he says to God, you know, you made me lie, really, because I prophesied those things and you've not done any of them. And God said, well, why should I? There was no need, because they all changed. So God's heart was softened. So we're dealing with a reasonable God, aren't we? We're dealing with a God who, like a parent with a child, explains to the child that, look, if you keep truanting from school and you keep doing these bad things, then life's going to get really bad for you. But then what? The child keeps doing the bad things, saying, oh, everything, my parents were prophets. Everything he said's coming true. I'm fulfilling your prophecy, parents. No, because the prophecies are there as a warning. And there are good prophecies. We have a choice. Why don't we live by the good prophecy? What was the good prophecy that Isaiah said, that Revelations that has been plagiarised from mostly? Zion, a woman's head. Jerusalem, a woman's heart. She's a widow. Humanity itself is a widow, because humanity is the host for the golden light. So humanity, as in our youth now, is the bride. Do we accept marriage to the universe? Do we accept the universal golden light to be a host for the universal golden light and to live with universal law of abundance in compassion? Do we accept that? Will we marry? Will our husband, can Jesus be born? Or are we going to say, no, that's all mythical nonsense? What's real is this world and its money and everything they say. What's real is a denial of the laws of physics. Well, I say to all of you, and I know I've criticised David Icke, I've criticised Alec Jones, not in a nasty way, it's not really criticism, it's concern. We all need to stand together now and get behind the truth. Yes, we've said wrong things maybe, we've believed wrong things, none of us are perfect. And we need to show that to the world. To Superman, okay, and liberate him into his real power and his true self. Because this idea that Jesus is going to come back, you know, as one man is absolutely ridiculous. Jesus comes back when we accept the golden light that Jesus lived by and shared. And, you know, the rich at the moment, what have they got to fall back on while they continue in their absolutely ridiculous and evil plans? Oh, their nuclear bunkers. Well, basically, the tombs. Except unlike the pharaohs of the past, these people actually want to live in their tombs before they die in them. Excuse me. And like the pharaohs of the past, they're taking all their slaves and servants and wives with them, aren't they? And so, like I say, I've asked Michael Tellinger to get in touch with the people at the Bank of Joy Ken O'Keefe come together. I know there's a load of shit being said about him, but again, you know, it is unevidenced. The guy's trying to do something. The people who are accusing him aren't doing anything. All they're doing is telling people, regurgitating shite with no direction. You know, they're complaining that Ken O'Keefe has taken public money, has appropriated public money that was donated. No evidence whatsoever to support it. He is fully committed to his One World Citizen project. That's what the money was donated for. That is what the world will be getting. Meanwhile, the people who are criticising him are asking for public funds for what? For their radio show. For their latest book on the Satanic New World Order. Really, do we need a book? I don't need to read a book about the Satanic New World Order. I grew up in it. It was my home. So, you know, it is time. We need to start getting organised and collected. And we need to stand by the absolute truth. And we do need now. We're living in the 21st century. We're no different to the people of, you know, the past, who suddenly we've all had to accept that, we've all had to accept the reality of DNA. We have to accept the reality, which still some cultures have not accepted, that it is the father that is responsible for the gender of the baby. We need to bring these facts into reality. In some cultures, women are punished for having a girl. Now we know for a fact, it is the male that determines the sex, the gender of a baby. So, are we going to start punishing men now? No, of course we're not. Is it because we're not going to have a tit for tat, eye for an eye world, are we? That's why Jesus preached forgiveness, and that's why everybody now has a chance to get with the truth and get with reality and lose all the centuries of garbage that have been filling people's heads. And Sinead O'Connor, listen to her. What she has said, what she has shared, is the truth of our humanity. The truth that billions of people are suffering in our world, except they haven't got the access to YouTube or to Facebook, and even if they did, nobody's going to listen to them. And Sinead O'Connor, God bless her, she has employed the fact that, yes, she is famous in order to speak out. And that is what John Pilger should have been doing. That's what Chomsky should have been doing in relation to the laws of physics and 9/11. Ask a question. And we all now need to start asking questions of ourselves and how we've been living and what we really believe in. Well, I can tell you, I know that universal light being is a reality, and so is the reality of our soul. That's the reality, not eternal death, eternal life. Okay? And those who refuse to get with it, well, what have they got to look forward to? How are they going to give account for themselves? Are they going to be able to move on consciously once they realise the truth, the real truth? Their conscience will not allow them to ascend to any higher levels of consciousness. It is very unlikely they'll be coming back to Earth as a human being if they ever get to live again at all. Because it depletes your soul energy to live by lies. And, you know, I've taken the time to share this. I have been exactly where Sinead O'Connor is so many times. And especially this last few years. It's just been horror upon horror. But I'm not here to share the horror. I've exposed it as a problem that needs to be resolved and then presented the solutions. Again, solutions like these child protection directives. okay? Because like I say, unless you know what the problem is, unless you understand it, how can you solve it? Will you accept a solution for a problem you don't even believe exists? But instead, we've got the people who are profiting off the fact that the problems are there in the first place, making the problems worse because they are failing to understand and fundamentally recognise the elephant in the room. So, you know, I know it's been a long video, and I really thank you for taking your time to listen. But it's very important. It's very, very, very serious what is happening. And we do need to all get real. And it doesn't matter what position we have in society, you know, what label we're presently operating under or standing under. We all need to connect with our own consciousness, our own conscience, and get with the truth and find strength and faith in it and stand up for our rights, okay? Ask questions. And we are relying on the people who have credibility, power and influence in this world now to speak out, to voice on behalf of the oppressed masses, on behalf of Superman, okay? And because it is time the working man, which as I say, both male and female, got their fair share for their fair day's work. It is time that the children had the rights to grow up in a society that protects them and prevents crimes against them. It is time that women had their rights. It is time that people suffering from mental illness were not treated like a criminal or a leper. It is time that we started supporting and helping each other. It is time, instead of avoiding compassion and stepping over it, which obviously that's why there's so many psychopathic people on top and sadists, because they don't have any compassion. It's easy for them to get on. People like Sinead are going to fall. She's going to lose contact with her children. Oh, because she's compassionate. She's compassionate. You see, you can't be too compassionate, love. Really? Well, we'll see. I tell you now, compassion is soul food. Universal law is soul food. There's just too many people in this world with full bellies, but their heads are starving. Okay? Our children, they look well fed, but they're starving for reality and truth. In comparison, the starving children who are physically starving, they are not starved of the truth and any of the world reality. They're living it. And Chomsky, you know, can pontificate about it for as long as he likes, but unless they are getting behind something and speaking out for people, then who are you? And yes, I am upset. So what are you going to do? You're going to back away from me? Are you going to judge me some mad woman? Or are you going to humbly accept that, yeah, we do need to do something. Yes, we do need to stand up for these people. Yes, we could have been wrong. Show the world that it is possible to do that. To be like God, to say, I'm going to do this in a rage, and then turn around and say, oh, you've changed, thank you. Because that is the way, and that is what this world cannot get its head around. It's like, you know, once somebody said something about somebody, that said, oh, don't talk to you now, you said that to me. There's never any come down, because people are all so proud and haughty. I mean, I've actually said sorry to people who actually have offended me. You know, and I refuse to do that now. I actually refuse to do that, because I've done it so many times just to keep the peace, to be, you know, because it's like, oh well, okay, I'll let it go because I can cope with it. But then that person can't even cope with so much as a broken bloody fingernail. And you know, this is the imbalances. And so, like I say, please, Michael Tellinger, Ken O'Keefe, Chris Hedges, the people at the Bank of Joy, Jesse Ventura, Cynthia McKinney, you know, how many other people, even David Icke, you know, even Max Egan, perhaps even Zen Gardner, even come out and say, yeah, I was part of that organisation, I did find out what was going on, I did run away from it, I didn't know what else to do, I was wrong. You know, what does that mean? That we're all going to stamp on them? We all need to accept that we've all done wrong things. That's why Jesus said we need to forgive. But the fact remains that some people are a danger to themselves and others. You know, forgiving a paedophile is not going to stop him from harming children, is it? Some people need to be incarcerated. Some people need removing from their positions of power in this world. Because forgiveness is not ignorance. It's not an excuse for ignorance. And a lot of people have been using it as an excuse for ignorance. They've been forgiving people who've committed serious crimes against them. And then those people have gone out and committed the same serious crimes against other people. Forgiveness is not meant to leave people and children at risk. It means that we are humane and we're balanced and we're reasonable. And, you know, that's why we need to establish universal law. We need to make compassion the head cornerstone. This austerity stuff is illegal. According to universal law, it's illegal. The criminals that are upholding it and promoting it and supporting it, and who are staying silent about it, and who are allowing it to continue, you will be called into account. Okay? And for what? You've sacrificed your soul, your eternal soul, happiness and joy, for what? The transitory pleasures, so-called, of this sick, twisted, upside-down world. So now I hope that you understand the message. And if you want to know the natures of my supernatural experience, as I say, watch Supernatural or Not Yet, the video which I'll share below this, along with a few other video links. Get informed, get educated, get with reality, lose the divisions. Every division is established to keep us all apart. And we are meant to be a diverse species. We are a diverse species. We will all have our different faiths and cultures and independent nations, but nonetheless we can all live and incorporate universal law in the same way that every culture and nation and religion on this planet has had no trouble incorporating the oligarchical money and its laws. Okay? So there's no excuse. And as I say, any religion or faith or culture that says that they can't incorporate universal law, that is a criminal faith, a criminal culture, and they need to be arrested and educated to understand that universal law is for their benefit. Okay? Abundance or austerity, life or death. Which one do we choose? How intelligent do you have to be to make the choice between life and death, abundance or austerity? If we can't make that choice, if we're too stupid to be able to make the choice, then yes, we deserve to die. We deserve to lose our planet. Because we're too stupid We're too stupid to accept a gift. We're too busy looking the gift horse in the mouth. Well, it's time for it to stop. And I really can't say anything more, except, you know, I'll leave the link to this. Listen to Sinead O'Connor. What she's sharing, the compassion, what she's suffering as a person, what millions of people are suffering, okay, as a result of the insanities and ignorances of this world. And, you know, what can I do? I send my love to everybody, and take strength and be happy, because let's face it, what Jesus said, Jesus was right, wasn't he? Prophet Muhammad was right. God is love.